Okay, so I'm here taking off my eye makeup, and I'm looking at the mess this is making, and it's a mess. It's a process, and it gets kind of smudgy and wild looking for a minute, and I'm like, wow, I'm a mess. I'm like, yeah, boy howdy, aren't I though? And yeah, we could get into like how much I've repaired, how much I've straightened that up, but yeah, I mean, I'm a mess. We're all a mess. That's the thing. I won't launch into a nobody knows what they're doing here rant, but nobody really knows what they're doing, right? People may know a lot about something. They might know more than anybody in their field about a subject. Excuse me. But, but they may not have a first clue about how to live their life beyond that. And some people are kind of worldly and have a larger sense of things, but there are areas where they have no idea what they're doing either. Nobody's got it all sorted out. Like drinking water before I try to run my gums at the camera. Nobody's got it all sorted out. And I'm thinking about how it really is about knowing that about ourselves, right? Like, I wonder how many fights people have that are ultimately about, like, one person denying how they are while the other person's like, whatever it is, we need to identify it and work with it, right? And instead of fighting about that, if two people come and they're like, yeah, I'm messed up in these ways, and these are the things I'm doing about it, and this is why it's not going to be your problem, because when you tell me I'm doing it, I know what you mean, and we don't have to have a fight, right? And we can just both be like, oh yeah, I'm doing that thing because I'm a mess, and you're a mess. And if we own that, and we work with it, and we find a way to not make it other people's problem, I think we could have much happier relationships and interactions in general. And yeah, it's beautiful to be able to embrace the mess I am. I'm like, okay, I'm a mess. Now I'm working with the reality that, like, I haven't got it all sorted out, and sometimes I look like I've been punched in both eyes as I'm trying to take off my makeup. And, you know, maybe I'm a mess in other ways, but we all are, and that's part of the shared human experience. And in trying to pretend we're not like that, because for about a century now, we've been advertised to, which means that somebody had to create a need in us, which meant the best way to do that is through a sense of lack and fear and envy. And so that's been instilled in us through generations of advertising and the cultural changes that went along with the number of changes that we've seen in just 100 years. So much change. Like, add up all of human history and then list what we've done in 100 years. It's a lot. And we've kind of gotten overwhelmed and have lost our bearings. And we think we're really supposed to always appear like the page in the catalog, right? That thing you saw online that was super polished by a number of professionals making it that way. Life is not polished, it's messy. And I think in being able to not just accept it or admit it, like grudgingly, like, but to love it, to embrace it, like, love thy enemies, right? Like, that's the idea, is to be like, all right, this is what we're working with, let's get it into the equation and make sure we come out with the right sum at the end, right? So we want to make sure it all adds up ultimately. And I think if you have two people in an interaction who are doing their part in that, that interaction is going to be so much easier, even when things go off track, even when there's dissonance. There doesn't even need to be real conflict, because you could be like, you're doing the thing. And somebody would be like, oh, I'm doing the thing? Damn, alright. Because I've told you, if I'm doing the thing, you can tell me, and I'll know what you mean, and I'll recognize that I gotta manage that so it doesn't become your problem, right? So even if there's not a conflict in the moment, there's also not the mounting resentment that goes unspoken, because you can't just look at a person and be like, babe, you're doing it, you know? And babe goes, oh, sorry, right? Like, how much human conflict can we subtract from the total if we all start showing up like that and being like, even in friendships and at work, wherever, just to be like, oh, okay, yeah, no, that's right. I told you to tell me when I was doing the thing, or there's a thing we needed to talk about, and I needed to show up like receptive and with a little bit of space from my ego to be like, oh shit, I'm doing that, I'm sorry. Or even if I know I didn't do some shit, I'd be like, I'm sorry, that's how that worked out, you know, like, I didn't mean it that way, I'm sorry that that affected you like that, I didn't mean to hurt you, I'm sorry if I did. Whatever it is, there's a place to acknowledge it and be able to like own stuff, or if need be, maybe have some contentious discussion about not seeing eye to eye until you can, or you at least reach some compromise, right? And yeah, I think so much of that's about showing up and being like, yeah, I know I'm not perfect, and stop pretending. How much energy is wasted, right? I was looking for something tonight in this studio that had several rooms, and then you couldn't see into the rooms at all, and so I had to like crack the door to peek inside, and I was just like kind of peeking a little bit, and like I opened one door and nobody even noticed me. I was like, oh, not the right room, you know. And I popped in another, and some people looked at me. I was like, sorry, and I walked out. You know, I like just pulled it back, closed. I didn't even go in. And then I went to another one, and the woman there was trying to help me. Somebody like was like, hold on. She came over and she tried to help me out. She's like, try going to room 5. So I go to room 5, and I'm like, okay, same situation. I have to pop the door to see what's going on. And I look in, and this woman comes at me, very like, whoosh. I'm like, oh, hello. Right? And she's like, I don't remember what she said to me. She was asking me like, what are you here for, or something. I was like, She's like, I'm like, oh, I'm looking for this, and I show her my phone, and she looks at, she's like, oh, that's not this. This is a work thing. We have the space from 6:30 to 7 to 8 or whatever. And I was like, oh, okay. It's like it would be the same time. She's like, they wouldn't be in here. We're in here. I was like, oh, okay. I don't know. Just the lady said I should check room 5. That's all. And she was like, oh yeah, no, this is a thing for work. It would have been embarrassing if you'd come in. I was like, what? Is that so? Like, how? I don't understand that. Like, why is that embarrassing if I walked in the wrong room? I walked in the wrong room. The earth is still on its axis. Nobody got hurt. It cost nothing. There's like no collateral damage. I just walked in the wrong room, and this woman seemed very concerned about it. She was like, yeah, that would have been embarrassing. I'm like, what? Like, do you really live inside that reality that like walking in the wrong room is embarrassing? Like, it happens, shit happens. And like, I think people get this idea of like, I can't get anything wrong, or it's like it's all gonna fall apart and people are gonna know I'm a fake. We're all fakes. We all have to fake it so we can go out there and be civilized and function. Like, if I went food shopping totally raw the way I feel some days, I'd be like crying on strangers' shoulders. I'd be like throwing down the tissues in the aisle, being like, these aren't gonna help anyway. You know, like, I'd just be ridiculous. I'd be ridiculous some days. I'd be like dysfunctional and creating a scene. So you gotta fake it. You gotta kind of be like, no, I'm a functional person who can just buy the tissues without getting frustrated and throwing them on the floor or something. I don't know. I guess I don't really have that impulse, but you know, like that petulant part of us that's like, you don't take that part out shopping and let them lead the mission. You're like, no, that part of me is going to take a backseat. So yeah, it's understanding like we have to fake it a certain amount, but like, then who cares? Nobody cares. Nobody would care except this one woman. I think maybe it was a room of people that like the same mindset, but like, I don't think anybody would have cared if I walked in the room. They'd be like, huh? Oh. And then they forget me 2 seconds later. And she was very concerned. She's like, that would have been embarrassing. I'm like, really? I suddenly felt very free. Like, I don't live with that worry. I don't spend my very limited life energy worrying about stuff. I think about stuff way too much. But I don't worry about it. I'm having a good time exploring an idea, right? And that's one of my quirks, is I'll get lost in thought. I'll be like talking about silly stuff for a while. If that is not something you enjoy, I might be a pain in your ass. I might be like, huh? Oh wait, I was just thinking about something and blah 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 blah. You don't like that? This is probably not a match. We're probably not going to be great friends. We're probably not going to have any sort of like great romance, right? Like that's just not going to happen. But you know, if you enjoy it, and here's the thing, we say, I love you despite your flaws. Like, again, we should love each other and each other's flaws in the way that that's part of the whole person. They wouldn't be them without those annoying habits or quirks or superstitions or whatever odd little thing that, like, you're like, oh, okay, like, that's part of who you are, and I love who you are, so I love that. Like, maybe you're not over the moon about your lover's left nostril or something, I don't know, but like, you love it because it's theirs, it's them, it's, you look at their face and you feel so much love and joy, and like, that left nostril just happens to be part of it, right? So it's like, yeah, it's the same with flaws. Flaws are part of who we are, and if we can love each other like for that as much as for all the good parts, like, we'll have such a better time. We'll see the humor in things, we'll delight in things, we won't need patience because it's not trying us. We'll just be able to like take it as the whole thing and be glad of that, if we can just stay grateful and present and able to communicate and own our shit, where it's like, I look at you, you know, I'm talking about that thing we talked about, and you're like, oh, you know, and it's just humor, and there's no pain. Can you imagine no pain? I think it's possible. Okay, not no pain, you're not getting through without pain, but like, this kind of pain, right? This pointless, fruitless conflict about nothing, when if two people can show up and like be real about who they are, they can also learn and grow further through that exchange. To be like, damn, you've had to tell me that 3 times today. How out of it am I? I need to pay attention to this, right? You get that feedback and you realize where you're not as tuned in as you think you are. And you get a more high resolution picture of yourself and how you're living life. And if you're sharing that experience with somebody, you can really help like call it out to each other and have all that benefit as well. So yeah, so we're all a mess, and if we can figure out how to bring our messes together, I think some sort of order will emerge from that. But we got to be real, and we got to embrace the whole thing, have reasonable expectations of ourselves and others. No, nobody's getting it right. We all have to fake it a certain amount to function in society. We have to be civilized, right? So whatever the mood, you're trying not to be grumbly with random strangers. I hope we're not taking out our bad moods on other people. But yeah, it's about embracing the mess of it all and loving it properly. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. All right. So the next round. Bye-bye.